If you have played on the Veloren server actively in these recent months, you may have noticed I have not been in game at all. In fact, I'm no longer in the Discord server either, and I haven't really made any videos. So what's going on? I have played Veloren for over 3 years now, starting in early 2023. I've logged in at least multiple times a week over the 3 years, and I've played admittedly almost daily for my first few years. So for me to seemingly completely disappear from the game and community out of the blue may have made some people concerned or confused. So I wanted to make this video and explain and clear the air on why I have not been active, and just give my overall experience with Veloren. As being deeply involved and invested with the project and community for 3 years, I feel like I could give some sort of deep review about the project itself. I will also be reading off a script in this video, which I don't usually do, so I apologize if I sound a little weird, but I have a lot I want to talk about. So it'll help keep the video shorter, I hope. I made a video covering this in February, when I started to leave Veloren, but I ended up scrapping the video for reasons I'll explain later. This video might seem a little all over the place, so there will be timestamps, but I'll try to keep things somewhat constructed. First, I want to explain my absence before I delve into everything. For the foreseeable future, I will no longer be playing Veloren, and I especially will not be contributing to the project. Long story short, I've quit the game. I can't tell if I'll never play ever again, as I never really wanted to quit playing in the first place, but I'm fairly confident I won't be playing again anytime soon, and if I do ever come back in some capacity, I'll never contribute to the project ever again, unless there are serious changes that have been made to the development culture, and I won't take the game as seriously as I did. So, why did I quit Veloren after playing so consistently for multiple years, contributing to development and even becoming balance lead for the game? What happened? You may think the obvious, and that I'm quitting because of the lack of content, or that there's nothing else for me to do in Veloren. The game hasn't really changed massively since I joined in 2023. The gameplay loop has always been the same, and I kind of figured that we weren't getting any new content very fast early on when I started playing, given the nature of Veloren being a free open source game made by unpaid hobbyists. So the lack of content would have never drove me to stop playing. That's just something I came to terms with. And yeah, there is quite literally nothing for me to do in Veloren, as I even have artifact rating now, so that was never the reason why I kept playing the game in the first place. I basically only played Veloren for the in-game community, and being involved with it. The in-game community has been nothing but love towards me, and I have met many people who I've become close friends with, hopefully for the years to come. The in-game community is probably the most nicest and welcoming gaming community I have came across. It essentially turns Veloren into a chat room game, as the in-game community is like Veloren's greatest feature. The key word here is in-game. I see Veloren in a weird way, like somewhat split between two different communities. There is the official server in-game community, and then there is the Veloren official Discord server community. The Veloren Discord is basically almost entirely used for development and discussing development. It's pretty much where everything development related takes place. The reason why I see it like this is simply because the active player base or regulars usually don't talk in the Veloren Discord server. I couldn't tell you the reason why. I personally think regular players are mostly just lurking, or they simply just don't use Discord server. I'm guilty of this too. I only lurked in the Discord server until I became a moderator. There is no deeper meaning to this. I just think it'll be useful to point out and make it clear for anyone who is unfamiliar with the Veloren community. Now, I will go over my reasons on why I'm unfortunately quitting, and my personal negative experience with Veloren, which drove me to giving up and abandoning it altogether. I will start by addressing some things as a warning before I get into it all. I'm going to be incredibly vague throughout this video. I'm being so vague on purpose as I want absolutely no witch hunting going on. This has already happened, which was a factor in me scrapping the original video about my experience with Veloren, as it's not something I wanted and it's not the goal of this video. I'm now remaking this video because I've been asked by multiple people now for my opinion on things and to explain my experience with Veloren's development. And I also just felt kind of bad for disappearing out of the blue. The goal of this video is, I guess, a last-ditch attempt at improving things within Veloren's development culture, and give feedback and criticism, as I want the project to succeed and I never wanted to quit. Veloren's development culture has left such a negative impact on my experience of even just playing the game and being involved with it that I no longer find playing the game fun, and has led to being involved with the project becoming unhealthy for me as it has noticeably made me a much more negative person. Everything I say in this video is my own personal experience with Veloren, what I have witnessed and my opinion. Some things to keep in mind throughout this video, for anyone unfamiliar, is that everyone involved with the project are unpaid hobbyists. I believe no one is acting with ill intentions, and we're all trying to reach the same goal of making Veloren a great game and environment. But I think the development culture can be toxic, which brings this to a snail's pace and it can be criticized. You can leave your thoughts or personal experiences you may have in the comments, but do not attack anybody, as it is unproductive. This is not an us versus them. I have seen both main developers and passionate players with this mentality, and I am definitely guilty of this. We need to hear each other out and work together in order to get anything done. I will be saying main developer or main contributors a lot throughout this video, which is very vague, as this is a free open source game and anyone can become a developer. But from what I have experienced, there's definitely a certain group of people who are and I will refer to as main developers. They have been here for years and I have worked with them. This video is not about every single contributor and not every single main contributor, though some of the points I will talk about can still apply. Okay, so now with that all out of the way, I'll now get into the details. One of the main reasons on why I'm quitting Veloren is that there's a serious issue with contributors and not taking feedback well on updates they are bringing into the game, aka merge requests. A large portion of main developers, to my knowledge, do not play the game. This itself is completely okay and fine. I don't expect everyone who wishes to contribute to Veloren to be able to make time to experience and get familiar with the game in its modern version to be able to contribute. Though, I think it becomes a notable problem when said contributors that don't play the game don't listen to feedback from active players that do, or don't try to reach out to players for their opinion. To me, this feels like walking through a maze, blind and deaf. I honestly cannot imagine trying to contribute to something with blatantly so little information, and in some cases, information about the game that is outdated by years. The main aspect of Veloren that I worked in was the workgroup balance team. I eventually became the team lead for the balance team, but prior to becoming balance lead, a lot of my testing feedback would often be disregarded and ignored in merge requests, even though I would be pinged in them to specifically playtest. During this time, I have been messaged by active contributors that I have to be careful to not give too much feedback on merge requests. This has resulted in features being added to the game in a weird half-balanced state, and I'd often see players complain about the exact same issues that I saw about playtesting, but I felt like I couldn't talk about, which has always made me feel very guilty and shitty. I was eventually chosen to be promoted to balance lead by the Veloren team during 0.16, in the hopes this would become less of an issue, because I was very knowledgeable about the game, and extremely in touch with the game and playbase, as I played at this point almost daily. But main developers accepting feedback would still become an issue. After becoming team lead for balance, I became less lenient about letting things merge in an unbalanced state and balance changes. I wanted to become almost like a quality control. I took inspiration from other team leads. I was a lot more open to helping any contributor balance the merge request, as I know not everybody wanted to balance or cared to. And if somebody wanted to balance something, I would try to give them multiple ways and options on how we could go about doing so, which is how Veloren's development is supposed to go, and I fully understood. I would willingly and happily take the time out of my day to compile merge requests, relentlessly test for sometimes up to hours to give either numbers or stats with some latency if contributors wanted to do a slight balancing themselves. I would even sometimes just give them straight up exact numbers and stats, or ways to go about balancing something that I felt comfortable with if the contributor did not want to balance at all, to simply add to the code. Even after all of this, my feedback after playtesting would go argued against by some of the main developers after pinging me to specifically playtest their merge requests, and to get my feedback and review, just to shrug it all off. There has been many times where my feedback has been shrugged off because I simply quote-unquote play the game too much. I would even have players defending me in these merge requests. However, I am not the only one that has their feedback disregarded from some of the main developers. I have seen many active players and their feedback after playtesting merge requests to go completely ignored more often than me for seemingly no reason. There has been times where I have had my feedback and other players' feedback disregarded and invalidated, and then get called quote-unquote investor class players, acting as if we only want certain changes in the game to get richer in game and more wealth. I find this to be insane and eye-opening on how the players might be viewed by some developers, and maybe why their feedback is ignored. We seriously only want to reach the same goal as developers, to make our game succeed and progress through its development. If you are a regular active player on the official server, you will know that it's trivial to become wealthy. You will simply become wealthy in-game just by playing for a long time. For me, I have been merchanting and selling items for 3 years non-stop, as I find it enjoyable to make trades with players and form a sense of community by doing so. In no way have I made any changes benefit me or other players in game, which is verifiably so. I would even argue that I have made changes countering my own playstyle and in-game wealth. So I am often left thinking, what is the point of the balance lead role? It doesn't do anything. I feel like I am just basic quality control that I expect every merge request to go through. My position in balance lead had gotten absolutely zero respect for reasons that I don't understand, which is noticed by other contributors. After factoring in that a few main developers openly and admittedly do not play the game and do not take feedback well from players, and myself that do play the game, this reinforces an us versus them mentality, as changes are being made to the game, with some players afterwards calling the developers out of touch. I am also very guilty of this, but this behaviour will get Veloren nowhere, and only distance some main developers from the active player base. If I had to speculate on why some main developers do not take feedback from the current player base, and myself, or play the game, is I assume it's because some of the main developers do not like the current state of the game, which some of them has openly admitted. The main developers think that the game is not in a state where they want it to be, and they want to totally change the game. So why would they take feedback from people who are playing an MMORPG dungeon crawler grind, when those players will be protective of that style of gameplay and crucify any developer who tries to change it, while we want to distance Veloren from that, which I think is very fair and I agree. Veloren's gameplay loop for the past 6 years, since dungeons were first introduced, has been basically the exact same. It has been 6 years without anything new gameplay wise, and the gameplay of only doing dungeons is not the greatest, and it gets stale fast. But I think knowing the player base, they will be a lot more open to these kinds of changes, if just given more options on how the game is played and content gameplay wise. For example, currently, I think a lot of the player base do not like the sound of real-time simulation dungeons, as it totally changes up the game, making dungeons unreloadable. Many, if not all of the players I have spoke to about it, do not like the sound of this change. But I don't think players dislike this change because it will be harder to gather items or wealth or whatever. But I think they may be concerned because it quote-unquote threatens the only existing gameplay Veloren has to offer, and has had to offer for over 6 years. I imagine the player base will be more open to changes like these, given more ways to play the game. I think it will be very valuable to gather feedback and information, and hear out both the players and developers during this stage of development, and maybe gather ideas on how to branch out Veloren's gameplay, and perhaps motivating players into contributing to the project this way, creating new said ways to play the game. I feel like this next topic is very worth to bring up. If you are new and you want to contribute to Veloren, I highly doubt you will go through the same experience that I did. But I still think it's worth to mention, and it's a factor on why I no longer want to contribute to development. To me, the in-game community has been nothing but love. Everybody knows each other in an almost family-like way. In my 3 years of playing Veloren, I have never been insulted by another active regular player in-game. The same cannot be said for Veloren's Discord server and the development side of Veloren. My experience with Veloren's development has been very toxic. Extremely toxic compared to the in-game community. I have been directly and indirectly insulted many times and given countless shade remarks from other developers. I have been called a no-life. I've been told to go to therapy. I've been called antisocial. I've been told to get laid. I have been basically reported, which I'll get into later. I've been told that I spend all day on Veloren. I've been called incompetent. I've been told that I play the game too much. And I have been told that I should quit Veloren. All within the Discord server, from developers and even admins, with some of these insults being used as arguments to invalidate me and my feedback in development merge requests. While some of these insults have been apologized for recently after being confronted, some people have continued to make these snide remarks right after being confronted about them. I find this to be inexcusable, too far and ridiculous. I have been insulted directly and indirectly many times solely because I'm highly passionate and care about the project. I shouldn't have to explain how I can put a lot of time into Veloren, as this is my private life. But I will, just to clear it up, I am aware I seem to be online almost all of the time. I have private problems with my life and living conditions, which gives me a lot of free time. I do not need to be reminded and insulted because of it, from main developers of a game I enjoy playing, simply because I'm passionate for the game. Shortly after being promoted to balance lead, there was something that came up that I can only describe as a report made on me and other team leads, and I want to address it. It was a request to quote-unquote install supportive and competent leadership in band's working groups that understand incremental development, and that the band's work group was derailing a key merge request. This key merge request was bringing back animation cancel rolling to the game, which is what we currently have at the time of making this video. This merge request that was supposedly being derailed was my entire idea. It was something that I have wanted to reintroduce to the game for months, as the rolling at the time made the game almost unplayable and entirely unbalanced, and it was my first thing that I wanted to fix after being promoted to team lead for balance. I asked Donovan to create it. I had Donovan code as I don't know code, and I asked some players for feedback. When this report or request was sent in, the merge request was waiting for Hubble Global's feedback and Donovan to implement said feedback. There was practically nothing else left to do. This leaves us with the statement that I don't understand incremental development. This was in reference to a very early development stage of FireGigas. The original contributor that started the FireGigas merge request wanted FireGigas to be merged in a state which I deemed to be unbalanced and not ready. I understand Veloren is pre-alpha and we should be trying to get in as many features as we can and work on them over time. That is bound to happen with anything in this game. I did suggest to them that FireGigas should be merged, but have it not be player facing and spawn in the wild until it was worked on some more, as in my opinion and the players that I had playtest FireGigas, it was very unfinished and unpolished, but it seemed like that was not enough. The merge request was then closed and I had Donovan relentlessly work on FireGigas and implement my ideas for FireGigas, which brings us to the current FireGigas we have today. In my opinion, we need some kind of quality control for any merge request. And some other team leads agree, and some of them work in the same way that I do. We constantly merge unbalanced features to the game without much thought, which constantly gives us extra work to do in the future. If we don't care about balance in the slightest and continue to merge everything right away, there will be too much of a backlog to balance and improve on in the future, that it will become never ending and a massive waste of development time. But unfortunately, balance is openly treated as a joke. The reason for this is because the game is pre-alpha and always changing. But this does not make any sense, as the same can be said for every single workgroup in Veloren. So is every single workgroup a joke? Why is it just balance? It does not take long to balance merge requests, and it will save us time in the long run. I have always been willing to straight up give main contributors the exact numbers or stats to input to balance their features, which takes 2 minutes max, but it becomes stressful and a waste of time when said contributors that admittedly don't care about balance argue with your balance feedback, which I think is insane considering my position as the balance team lead. We have an entire workgroup which is dedicated to balancing, so why are we not utilizing that workgroup and just letting them balance? Again, the balance lead role was never respected for reasons that I don't know. This has been noticed by other contributors, team leads and players, and there is a big discussion surrounding it all. Prior to me leaving Veloren, I was changed to the game design team lead, with 2 other team leads, in what I think was an attempt to have my position respected by other main developers. I think this is very unfair, as main developers would never argue with the team lead for, let's say, art, over art-related things and model. For some reason, it was seemingly only my position. So I guess wrap this up and end this, I'll go back to the main reason why I'm entirely done with Veloren for the foreseeable future, and summarize everything. The greatest thing about Veloren is its community. It's the most strongest thing Veloren has, and it's the best thing Veloren has to offer. I don't understand why we have main developers that don't play the game, which again, that alone is fine, but that are not utilizing their strongest tool, which is the community Veloren has. Veloren has an insanely passionate player base that have played the game for years, that do basically nothing in game, and only play for the community and the idea of Veloren. I believe the main developers need to listen to the player base to be able to implement more options of gameplay, so that the players won't be protective of what little gameplay Veloren has left, because they truly love the game and they want to keep enjoying it. We need to be more clear to the player base, so that huge changes don't come as a shock, and the developers don't become scared to change the game. The game has been in pre-alpha for 8 years, with the gameplay being the same for around 6. We continue to make the same mistakes over and over, which cost us time. So much time spent arguing over the same things again and again, when it could be spent implementing new ways to play the game. And with both the developers and players hearing each other out and listening to each other, this becomes easier to do. Okay. I'm now no longer reading off a script that took me hours to write. If you're still here watching this video, you're just going to get a round of applause for sticking through all that. If you came from the timestamp, you don't get a round of applause, but hello. So obviously, I only make Veloren content on this YouTube channel. I have so many cool ideas that I really wanted to do, but obviously it's all within Veloren. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with this YouTube channel yet. It has been the most fun to work on. I have one more video planned. Hopefully I don't take too long to make this video that I have coming up. If you play Veloren and you wish to stay in contact with me, feel free to join my Discord server. My Discord server is filled with Veloren regulars. And yeah, it is just like a Veloren Discord server. But I guess less Veloren now because most players in there don't play Veloren anymore. But they still come into chat. So yeah, you can join the Discord server. Link is in the description. Thank you for hearing out my experience. If I do ever come back to Veloren, I don't think I'll ever contribute to the project again. I think if I do come back though, I will try to. I think I'm going to like strongly prioritize making videos for Veloren, so that would be pretty cool. Making a lot of like Veloren content has been something I've always been trying to do. It's something I've always wanted to do. But to be honest, I've just been distracted actually just playing the game. Like I do love the game. I truly love the game. Since if I do ever come back, I won't take the game as seriously. I will definitely prioritize making content surrounding the game, as I still have so many cool ideas. I sometimes come up with ideas. I haven't played the game like since February, and I still come up with ideas like, damn, I should have done that. That was so good. But yeah, you can join my Discord server. Link is in the description if you want to talk or hang out with regular Veloren players. And hopefully this isn't one of my last videos.